Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Rome Washington. I'm the author of the book Jesus Walks into a Bar, and I'm here today with Yaya Diamond.
Yaya Diamonds, dream chasers, we won't wait. Subscribe today before it's too late. Inspiration flowing just like the breeze. Chase your dreams and feel at ease.
Be good. Be very good.
I am
Wow.
gonna be very good. I'm gonna be very good. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in to Yaya Diamond's Dream Chasers Radio, where you can find us on all the major social media platforms, as well as Amazon Fire, Roku, Comcast, and all kinds of other different places. Because why we've been here so long, I would hate to say that we are not there and that we didn't have those connections, but we do. Wherever you watch your podcast, wherever you watch your talk shows, and wherever you want to be inspired, please subscribe to us, Yaya Diamond's Dream Chasers Radio, or even Dr. Yaya Diamond. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. We have an amazing guest on our show, and I want to thank him for his service, first of all, because without our service people out there, we would be captives. I'm just gonna say it. We would be messed up. We would be captives, and I couldn't do it because I would probably be killed. Because Yaya doesn't behave, and that's why my mom says, "Be good." Yeah, she always told me that. I want to thank you so much again. Today's guest is someone whose journey and voice are deeply needed right now. We need someone else's voice. So, shh. Dr. Rome Washington, a Marine Corps veteran, lifelong student of theology, and the author of the new book, Jesus Walks into a Bar, which I really need to ask him why Jesus would walk into a bar. I don't know. But I kind of get the point. But okay, joins us for a powerful and refreshing conversation about faith, doubt, and the human side of spirituality. His book is written for skeptics, for people that don't believe, if you didn't know what a skeptic was, seekers, and anyone who ever felt spiritually tired or unsure about what they believe. It's honest, it's funny, it's completely free of jargon and pressure for people who often associate these things with Christian books. Jesus Walks into a Bar tackles the hard question, suffering, hypocrisy. That one right there. That keeps people from going to church. That keeps people from being spiritual. That keeps people from being a Christian, from being a believer. Hypocrisy is big. Science and faith without giving easy answers. It blends history, theology, and real life stories, and even includes imaginative theological humor breaks where Jesus shows up in modern places like a bar on Skid Row. I would love to see that. Okay, would absolutely love to see that. Rome's approach is inclusive, compassionate, and non-coercive. So he's not trying to get you to convert. Okay, he just wants to show you another side of being a Christian. This is not dull. Okay, hello. He's not here to preach. He's here to open the conversation. Please welcome the author of Jesus Walks into a Bar, Rome. Well, actually, it's not Rome. It's Dr. Rome Washington. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, title. Have to get into it. Title. Okay. Jesus walks into a bar. Tell me what were you thinking? How did that happen?
Well, it happened after a little bit of thought. When you think about Jesus, when he did walk the earth, he didn't go into too many churches. He went every now and then, but most of the time he met people where they are, where they're living day to day. He wasn't afraid to go into a sinner's dinner or anywhere he was needed. So if he came today, I don't think he'd have much of a problem walking into a bar to hold a heartfelt conversation with people there who had a lot of questions.
Lots of questions. I love what what you're about. The Jesus Walks into a Bar really takes the pressure off of a person, and it tells the person, look, I'm not here to bring you to the church. I'm here to bring you to me. And so
Mhm.
I'm gonna walk into this bar and I'm gonna be there with you and I'm gonna go through this with you. When you were writing this book, what was the main purpose behind everything that you've written in there? And why did you do it this way? I mean, I understand the
Yeah.
title, I
Mhm.
understand the principle of it, but
Mhm.
what about the outcome? Because I know that there was something connected to that outcome. What did you want to do with the people who actually read this book?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll step back a little bit toward the genesis of the book and why it exists.
Mhm.
I've got well over 40 years of theological training. And in my early younger days, I majored in apologetics. And what that is, that's a defense of the Christian faith.
Mhm.
So consequently, I would get into discussions, if you will, with a lot of people. And though I could win the argument, yeah, quite often I lost the person. So I decided right then and there, I need to find a better way to communicate these truths in a way that people would not feel pressured. They would feel free to consider the concepts that I was putting forward on their own terms. And that's what led to the creation, the birth of Jesus Walks into a Bar.
Mm, mm,
And in it, I've tried to pour in a lot of things that I think are important to answer the questions that people have now.
mhm.
And I'm talking hardball questions here. Is Christianity the only way to God? Um, why does God allow bad things to happen? Does he have a PR problem? What about heaven and hell? Would a kind and loving God actually hell? These are the things that are on people's minds now.
Yeah.
They're not getting that really from the pulpit or other places in a way that feels relaxed and they can think about it and consider it and come to their own logical decisions. So that's what I try to accomplish in the book.
I love that. I absolutely love that because I feel the same way. Like
Hmm.
when you go up to someone and you say, "Hey, such and such and such and such," they feel so pressured because so many people have gone up to them and argued with them and
Hmm.
and told them you're wrong, and they put the attitude on, and it's like, we have to meet the person where they're at.
That is correct.
And that's why I love when you this book, Jesus Walks into a Bar. I think meeting them where they're at, understanding that they can't take more than what they can take.
That's true.
You
That is
know,
so true.
um, as you think about your book and as you go through, what was it like to actually create the scenarios in your head and to answer these questions? Did it help you in any way to understand how you should talk with people? I know you talked about it a minute ago, but there
Hmm.
is a personal aspect to every book that people write. What was
Hmm.
that for you?
Hmm. Well, this was it. I felt that a lot of people, and I cover this in, I believe, the second chapter. A lot of people grew up in secular households and other environments that never even got a chance to meet the Gospels and to meet Christ properly. Um, so I said what I should do is just take that stance for somebody who doesn't know, never had the opportunity to know, to read it in an orderly and calm fashion so
Mhm.
that then they can make their own decisions and finally be able to ask the good questions to people who claim they know religion. In a way, that knowledge is power to them.
Mhm.
After reading Jesus Walks into a Bar, they can hold their own, I believe, with just about any theologian. Not the deep doctrinal stuff, but they'll know what is true and what is just fluff or a person's opinion. And that's one thing I wanted to accomplish with this book, to give that gift to everybody who wants to know and do it in a conversational manner.
I love it. Yeah. And the biggest thing about it is that you challenged something that a lot of people don't challenge, which are the skeptics. What was that like for you? You challenged the people who may even read your entire book and still be skeptical.
I wanted to give them the freedom to do that, but I also wanted to give them the liberty to read the book on their own terms and raise their own questions and give them a basis, a foundation for researching these questions, whether true or false. I blend in history so that they will know how things got to look the way they do now.
Yeah.
Where did Christianity start? And not only that, there's a chapter in there on the unsung heroines of the Christian faith that we have never heard about. These are women throughout the history of Christianity from the very beginning who upheld Christianity. And even to this day, they continue to do so. But nobody knows about this. So I wanted to pour that in there too. Women of color, how they carried on the banner within Christianity. And I should say people of color. So there's a lot, I felt like a kaleidoscope of information that makes Christianity vibrant, makes it more than just, you got to go to church today. You got to obey the 10 Commandments. You got to read your Bible. And if you don't, you're doomed. There's much, much more, especially in the words and life of Christ.
Yeah. And I love that you've tackled the women. Because a lot of times people say, oh, the women are just there as sisters, or they can't be pastors. No, they can't be leaders. But I beg to differ. I mean, look, when Moses didn't circumcise his son, his wife stepped in and said, I'm not dying for you. I'm not dying for you. You are a bloody husband to me because I had to do this so that we wouldn't die.
That's right.
She took the leadership position because he didn't. There are many times where men would put a woman down, but their women are there to help the men when the men don't see right. And I love that. When you wrote the book and when you finished the book, because this is during the writing process is wonderful because you go through all of these things but you get to the end. What was that like for you? What did you feel like? Did you feel like it's incomplete, or did you feel complete, or are you doing something different or writing a different aspect of it now?
When I got to the end of this book, I exhaled with gratitude, because I think that although every word may not be perfect, I think I got across what was meant for me to get across. Because you see, in writing this book, in many ways, Yaya, I felt I was guided. Sometimes I would be up at 2:00 in the morning writing, and then the next morning or so, I get up and read and say, "Did I write that?" So when I got to the end, I said, "Oh, thank you, Lord. I think I put forward what you wanted me to do." In regards to the second part of your question, Jesus walks into a bar, opens the door for people to examine Christianity and learn about Christianity. But there's a lot of people who have left the church. They call them deconstructionists, religious deconstructionists. They've left the church for one reason or another, and they number in the millions. These people need more than an explanation of that they will get through Jesus walks into a bar. So there is still more to be said on the issue, but in a different and more clinical, helpful way. And that may well be the next project.
And I did see some lines from the book. Many people walk away from the church long before they walk away from Jesus. Jesus didn't come to win arguments. He came to confront and transform. Doubt isn't the opposite of faith. It's often the doorway into it. I love that. I do think that a lot of people who walk away from the church just walk away from that congregation.
Yeah.
because there's something wrong with that, or they don't agree with that, or something happened to, or they moved. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But to
Mm-hmm.
walk away from the Savior himself would be another thing altogether. These
Absolutely.
three things, why did you choose these three particular excerpts from the book?
Well, those were just some things that I felt directed it to this class of believers and former believers that I just talked about, to let them know that their voice is being heard, and that not only them, but also that there's another class of the worshipers or former worshipers, evangelists who needed to hear the same things. They would look at it and said, "Yeah, you know what? That's me.
Yeah.
That's the same thoughts that I had." So I
Mhm.
thought they would be appropriate. And you know what? They're subject to change because the more I talk to people and get into it, there's a lot of motivations and a lot of aspirations,
Mhm.
because within us we're built to seek God once again. How
Yeah.
you do that can be very personal. In a lot of ways, worship has moved from the cathedral to the living room, especially since COVID, where
Yeah.
people are feeling quite comfortable either streaming or prayer groups or study one on one with the Bible and learning. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Well, I absolutely love it. I love the beginning, like you said, because this is just opening the door. Do you have anything else that is upon your heart to write? I mean, are you going to continue to write about, opening the door, and maybe even towards skeptics and people who have left? I'm just kind of paraphrasing here, but I think that, like you said, it's just the beginning.
Yeah, as you read in the final chapter, I feel to the people who read this and finish it, it is a new beginning for them. A lot of them have left already. They're on the outside looking in, but they still have that internal spiritual struggle. That has to be somehow, um, I don't want to say dealt with, but they have to be able to hear a voice that helps them go through that, think that through. I haven't seen that voice out there yet.
Yeah.
So who knows?
It's been missing for many years.
Hmm. Hmm.
Just like the grandmother that sat on the porch, or the grandfather that sat on the porch, and you sat
Yeah,
underneath them and you got the
yeah.
stories and the life guidance. You don't get that
Hmm.
anymore.
That's true. That is so
And
true.
it's missing.
Hmm.
And I hope that this podcast brings a little bit back to encourage people to do that again.
That
Not
would be
that
wonderful.
this podcast or this TV show will replace it, but that it will inspire people to actually do this again. I
Hmm.
missed it because my great grandmother used to sit on the porch,
Oh
and she
yeah.
used to have the lemonade and the fan blowing
Mhm. Mm, oh shoot.
in
Yeah.
the window, the box fan in the
Yeah.
window
Yeah.
facing you. It was in the window. The AC was
Mhm.
being blown out on her. She had the lemonade and the cookies. What? I'm kidding.
Yeah.
It was-
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
absolutely loved it, and I learned a lot. I learned a
Mhm.
lot. I learned about business, but I learned about life and ups
Yes.
and downs and different things in history.
Mhm.
Where they came from, where they started, how to be grateful.
Mhm.
These are
Yes.
things that I learned sitting on the porch
Mhm.
bench, just, on the swing.
Right.
And we don't have that anymore.
Right. And they communicated it to you in just plain loving
Mhm.
talk.
Exactly.
And that is what's missing too,
Mhm.
because
Yes.
hearts are so hardened nowadays. And a lot of the mothers and grandmothers are rather young, and didn't get that. They didn't get that, from their moms and grandmas. So what do they hand down? Unless they start themselves to grow their spirit,
Mm, mm, mm.
to reconnect with the divine.
Yeah.
It's got to
Yeah.
start somewhere.
It does. It
Hmm.
does. And I think, I'm not that old. I'm not that old. But I am 53, and I
Okay.
kind of got the tail end of my grandmother's life.
Mm-hmm.
And my great grandmother, her life too. I met her. And it was a blessing
Yeah.
because my mother was a young mom.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got that. I got that blessing. I got the blessing of being around my great uncles, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And my great aunts and
Mm-hmm.
people like that. And so I think having that experience as a Generation X kid was very unique because Generation X was the latchkey kids,
The latchkey kids, I know.
Hear your key. I got that too. So I got the tail
Uh-huh.
end of that, and I got the latchkey kid thing. And by the time I was 8 years old, I was home alone. So I got that, but that was, my grandmother was already gone. Not my grandmother, my great grandmother was gone by that time because I got the
Mm-hmm.
tail
Mm-hmm.
end of her life.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I got those first few years, and I'm blessed. And I think that your book, Jesus Walked into a Bar, is a blessing. And it's one of those books that put you on the on the porch and the
Yeah.
swing, and it says, "Listen here, young kid."
Yeah. It does it in a conversational way. And what makes this book unique and probably hasn't been done, I don't know if ever, uh, are the theological humor breaks, where I bring Jesus to the 21st century, and he does in fact walk into a bar, and I won't say confronts, but interacts with the people there uh, who have modern day issues.
Yeah.
And Jesus, in a humorous way, gives them sage wisdom, if you want to call it that.
Right.
And there's several scenarios, and the one that really gets me the most, and it's not humorous, but it's poignant. Uh, Jesus visits Skid Row.
Yeah, you talked about. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
said that in the beginning. Yeah.
yeah, that is
Mm, mm,
is
mm,
is really I feel very powerful, and
mhm.
the message to us is don't forget about other people.
That's
Love
right.
your neighbors as you love yourself, and lend a helping hand whenever you can.
Yeah.
So so it is an eclectic collection of stuff in there. And Jesus
That's
walks into a
wonderful.
bar. Mhm.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for writing that book. We need that. We need that. We need the practicality of it, and we need the um how would I say, the ease of understanding that Jesus, Yeshua, however Yahushua,
Mhm,
different names,
mhm,
um
mhm,
would approach a person where they're at
mhm,
with no pressure, because
mhm.
it's all in his time and not ours.
That's
We
correct.
may want that person to be like, "Come on, let's go today."
Mhm,
But
mhm.
it just doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes it takes years. We just sit and watch and
Yeah,
let the Most
yeah,
High do what the Most High does. And
yeah.
in their lives, they move forward. I absolutely love this and can't wait for Jesus to walk into a strip club.
I don't know if I go that far, but
But you get the point. You get the point. It's
I
like,
get your
I'm gonna
point.
meet you where you're at. I mean, if okay, so if in fact Jesus created us, he knows what we look like naked. This is not something that's gonna be like alarming to him.
Oh no,
You
he
know what I
knows
mean?
all.
So
Mhm.
I just, it's a funny way of saying that no matter where you're at, he'll meet you there.
He'll meet you there, and I hope that at the conclusion of a person's reading, that they will feel deep down inside that they matter to the Lord,
That's right.
and that He came first time for redemption, and He's still redeeming people and transforming lives.
Exactly.
We've tried a lot of things to transform our lives here in this rat race society, and it really hasn't happened.
Mm.
So you definitely need to. I don't know. I don't want to say anything so harsh as get your life in order, but you need to try something a little different. And Christ is more than just a little different. He loves you and
Yeah.
wants to transform your life.
Yeah. Just open your heart up and see, and
Mhm.
just be open to it.
Yeah.
And don't be pressured. Don't feel pressured. It's not.
Right.
It's not a pressure. There's,
Right.
in His time, it will happen if it, and when it's supposed to.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, thank you. And
You are
I was
so
just playing
welcome.
around with the other book. I'm sorry.
Ah.
But just to say, like I said before, that He will meet you wherever you are.
That
So if
is
that
correct.
is where you're at,
Mhm.
don't be surprised if all of a sudden, He grabs your heart and that's it. You can't
Mhm.
do it no more. And that's just the way that happens sometimes. And there
Absolutely.
is no, the human body was designed for greatness and by the Creator, and Jesus was there.
Mhm.
So there's nothing you have done or haven't done that won't surprise Him. So
Right. And you bring up a good point. What you've done or haven't done is forgiven.
yeah,
And that was the whole point of him actually dying and his sacrifice. So come to him freely, like a friend, and he'll be there for you.
that's it. That's it. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Ron Washington, for
You
being
are
on the
so
show
welcome.
today.
I
This has
enjoyed
been
it.
so much fun.
I totally enjoyed it.
I did too, and I'm looking forward to the next book whenever and however that happens.
You'll be
And
one of the first to know.
I hope I didn't influence your title.
No, I've believe me, I've got the title already.
Okay, good. Okay, the X-nay on the on the other thing that I said earlier. Oh my gosh. I want to thank you, and I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. Hey, don't forget to go to jesuswalkedintoabar.com. That's jesuswalkedintoabar.com, and check out the book for yourself. If you want to gift that or read that or even have someone and buy a few copies or send out a few copies so that people won't feel so pressured, and in that own time, in their own time, and in the creator's own time, actually let the creator deal with them, and you just kind of step back and watch, because that's how it usually happens anyway. Go ahead and get this book. I want to thank you guys again so much for tuning in, and don't forget to always completely dare to be different. All right, guys. Bye. And thank you for watching.